And we're back with another fire video. Kelsey Mitchell was on Erica Willis' podcast. She was talking about the Caitlin Clark's fan base and called them passionate, said they're different. We're going to get into all that, but first and foremost, I want to shout out to the truth tellers, my Wizards out there, Wizards gang. You already know we have 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate y'all. Out of all the platforms that I have amassed a following on, that I'm very grateful. This means the most to me because I really feel like we're building out something special with all the live streams and the community as well. And I just want to say thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. 1K subscribers. Let's get it. 99K more to go. But I really appreciate y'all for locking in with me. 1K is very, very dope. I've been on this platform for in totality 6 or 7 years, but I really stopped. And I didn't pick it up back until last year. So really appreciate y'all. But Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Erica Wheeler's podcast, they talked about Caitlin Clark and their fan base. They're talking about how her fan base is really diehards for her, the Caitlin Clark fan base, the Caitlin Clark Hive, the stands, whatever you want to call them. And Kelsey Mitchell got on Erica Wheeler's podcast, and she was talking some interesting things, and we're going to go over that. We're going to show that. We're going to react to that. And it just brings me back to when I talk about fan bases. And one thing I will say about Caitlin Clark and her fan base is that they are very passionate. They are very dedicated. They are very committed to Caitlin Clark. And also they kind of bridge the gap from college basketball fans to WNBA fans. So when we talk about Caitlin Clark and her fan base, we're talking about a fan base that has contributed to the success and the growth of the WNBA, and also the following of going from college basketball and that transition to the WNBA, which is very, very important when we talk about the game of basketball, because sometimes that transition does not tend to happen. A lot of Caitlin Clark initial fans and fan base came from the college game, meaning this was a niche following that grew tremendously, and then more people got locked in and tuned in on Caitlin Clark and her greatness, and also Iowa and the things that she was doing in college from freshman to sophomore season, and then the junior and the major senior season as well, and all the things that she accomplished. So we've seen a fan base grow globally, and we also seen a fan base that has been a little kind of we were here from the beginning. We were here from the start. We were here from Caitlin Clark going into her freshman year when she was not getting the attention that she was deserving, and people were saying that Paige Beckers was better than her, even though it was because of that UConn and that marketability product and that machine that generates views, generates marketability, generates buzz and attention, and being on ESPN and being on national coverage games that UConn has. It was none of that for Caitlin Clark early on, in particularly her freshman and sophomore year. We started to get a little bit more towards when the March Madness tournament happened and people started really getting to see Caitlin Clark and her greatness. But I will say for us, Caitlin Clark's fan base, the niche following, not the following that came on when she was a junior or senior. I'm talking about the niche following, the following like myself that really watched her coming into her freshman year at Iowa and really dominated and really was like, yo, this girl is different. She has the potential to be something very, very special. We've never seen her play style in the college basketball game, and we've never seen her play style in the WNBA game. And of course, fan bases tend to grow. So it's that type of fan base. So you got the global fan base, the fan base right now that's into the WNBA, caught on the bandwagon, has experienced all this momentum, has become, some of these fans have become WNBA fans as well and Fever fans as well because of Caitlin Clark. Of course, her fan base, like Kelsey Mitchell said in Erica Wheeler's podcast, is going to grow, is going to be wherever she goes, they go. And it's nice to see when we talk about fan bases, because for the first time ever, we're seeing a fan base from a woman and in a women's sports. And I'm not saying like women don't carry large group of fan bases. I'm not saying that, because we know it's some women out there like Serena Williams. Her fan base is enormous. Simone Biles, like her fan base is enormous, but it's not like this for Caitlin Clark. This is the first time, Diana Taurasi, this is the first time we're seeing, and those sports are individual sports as well. So it's a little bit different. This is the first time I want to say in a team sport that we're seeing the potential of Caitlin Clark's fan base being as big as some of the biggest players and athletes of all time for a fan base that's going to literally be around for years and years to come. That is the potential of Caitlin Clark's fan base. And we'll dive deeper into that. But how does her fan base rank amongst some of the most enormous fan bases of all time? Some people, and in fan bases, there's going to be passionate fans, there's going to be crazy fans, there's going to be fans that's going to ride or die no matter what. And sometimes it can get a little crazy, it can get a little hectic. But how does Caitlin Clark's fan base, which is newer, relate to the Stephen Currys, the LeBron James, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, which I think, for as a team aspect, those are the biggest fan bases of all time when we talk about the game of basketball. And now we having Caitlin Clark come on and interject herself and also her fan base be a part of the WNBA game, coming from college to the WNBA game. It's going to be very, very impressive and also going to be very, very enormous, and someday potentially can be as surreal as those other players' fan base. But let's get to what Kelsey Mitchell said on Erica Willer's podcast.
I think that experiencing it, I love Caitlin Clark fans, but Caitlin Clark fans are different. They C-Square, shout out to the gang,
different.
They are very passionate people, and they gonna ride or die.
Listen.
And the thing that Kelsey Mitchell said that is very important, the first thing she said, experience it, she loves to experience it. She's a part of it. She is contribute to that success, contribute to that fan base. It's good to be on that side because, as we know, for certain fan bases, when you're not on that side, it can get very hectic. It can get very toxic at times. It can get very loud. It can get very aggressive because fan bases when you have enormous fan bases like a Caitlin Clark, like a Stephen Curry, like a LeBron James, like a Kevin Durant, like a Tiger Woods, a Serena Williams, Alex Ovechkin, all these different fan bases, it's people that's going to really ride for their player no matter right, wrong, or indifferent. They're always going to be on that player's side. So it's very funny that she said that.
And Caitlin Clark is a god to her friends. She does no wrong. Do not play. Do not play with her fans.
Let's just say C-Square, I'm happy I'm on the right end of
it. We on the right end of the stick, baby. Because
I hate to be.
Listen,
because
they love us right now. But if we go god to her friends, she does no wrong. Do not play. Do not.
They're saying that Erica Willer says the fan base is different. They ride really hard. Her fan base's view her as a god. I don't think nobody should view any human being as an idol of a god. Only person they should be viewing in that mantle is Jesus Christ. And, that's my personal opinion on that. So that's that wording is kind of a little rocky. But they view Caitlin Clark as a superstar, an icon.
Play with her fans.
Let's just say C-Square, I'm happy I'm on the right end of
it. We on the right end of the stick, baby. Because
I hate to be.
Listen,
because
they love us right now. But if we go right left, it's over for us.
Caitlin Clark fans, I love you back. I promise. Please don't.
Yeah,
her fan, but the one thing I would say about Caitlin Clark fans that I can't appreciate, they'll go anywhere she go.
They gonna travel.
She
gonna go to the desert.
Travel.
And right there with her.
It's super dope though because it's they would literally go anywhere she go, and so she's built that kind of platform. And damn, that's lit.
And she's right. Caitlin Clark has built that type of platform, and she's always saying the right things in the media. And her personal brand is enormous. And when we talk about social media, we talk about athletes, rappers, streamers. Personal brand is the new sponsorship. Personal brand is the new brand. It's no longer where corporations are going to be able to come over and dictate whether it's profit, whether it's opportunities, it's going to be based on a player's or person's personal brand. And that's why personal brand is extremely important. And Caitlin Clark has built that tremendously. And when we talk about Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell is saying like, yo, her fan base is really like that. Her fan base travels. Her fan base is different. I'm glad I'm on the right side of it because things can get hectic. You got to read between the lines of what some of the things that she is saying. But this is true. She's absolutely right about the things that she's saying. And even
now you in some heat. Well, everybody watching Indy. Everybody.
And the co-host is talking about now how the state of Indiana is becoming like, quote unquote, the new Hollywood. And I don't believe that. I don't believe in that sense. But when we talk about Caitlin Clark and we talked about like her popularity and the things that she's achieved from the college game coming over to the WNBA side, the eyes, the viewership, the celebrities, the stars, people are going to come to the state of Indiana, the city of Indianapolis, which has always been a great basketball mecca. So now you have the most popular player in the sport on the women's side and probably the most popular player outside of LeBron James and Stephen Curry in basketball in general. And her game is going to be global. And she's the new face of American hoops. A lot of people are going to be locked in and tuned in and going to want to go see her at her hometown, at her home team, and be a part of that history. And it's going to draw and continue to draw a lot of revenue. As we already noticed, she helped generate $36 million this past season, and there are only 42 games, 40 or 42 games within the WNBA season. So we're already seeing that. We had Travis Scott for his go to the national championship game in the March Madness Final Four game. One of those games, Travis Scott showed up and was on the Iowa side to watch her games. So it's a lot of people, a lot of eyes, a lot of things that are happening in the state of Indiana, largely due to Caitlin Clark and her fan base, and also largely due to Caitlin Clark, most importantly, for her game.
Trying to see what's going on.
America's team? Dallas Cowboys, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
might be.
I'm joking. Dak Prescott.
No, seriously.
Just don't follow
like the Cowboys. We in it right now where I tell everybody, I say I feel like Indiana is the new Hollywood. Everybody wants to sit courtside. Everybody wants to get to the games to see us play.
And when Kelsey Mitchell said, "Are we the new America's team?" And I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so when you think of America's team, you think of the Dallas Cowboys, even though they are horrible. And don't get me started on that. But when you think of now the Indiana Fever, you are potentially Kelsey Mitchell has a point. Like the Indiana Fever had the potential to become America's team because when you have Caitlin Clark, who has a enormous fan base, when you have a Midwestern team, city, state, where they really gravitate towards the college teams, their NBA teams, their college football teams, that sports fandom is really live in those regions because a lot of times in comparison to major cities and markets, all they have is really their sports team for a sense of entertainment in comparison to a New York, in comparison to a Los Angeles, in comparison to Miami. So those fan bases, those core fans, the core states, the core people that live in these areas, they're really locked in on their sports team. And when you have Caitlin Clark and Erica Willis said, Indiana's the new Hollywood, you're going to bring in more stars. You're going to bring in more opportunity. You're going to also bring in new fans to the game that are going to come to the state of Indiana, that are going to come to the city of Indianapolis to watch Caitlin Clark play. And that's why the Indiana Fever, they're building out a new multi-million-dollar arena. That's why you're about to probably see over the next 10 to 15 years, the economy is going to definitely increase. And it's going to be so much new things that are going to be built, created, that's going to be centered around the Indiana Fever, but most importantly, centered around Caitlin Clark because she is this iconic figure. She is essentially the face of basketball going forward for the next 10 to 15 plus years. And there's no way I can see the Indiana Fever, unless Caitlin Clark eventually wants out, but there's no way I can see the Indiana Fever ever wanting to let Caitlin Clark go. She's going to be probably synonymous to the Indiana Fever for it's that one legend, one team franchise like a Kobe Bryant, like a Magic Johnson, like a Larry Bird, and a Bill Russell. Like that's the potential that we're seeing. So when we talk about fan bases and we talk about Caitlin Clark's fan base, they're different. They are passionate. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they got a lot of people into the game of basketball. There's a lot of new people into the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark, Clark stands, Clark fans, whatever you want to call her. This fan base, and we're going to talk about all of them in comparison. So the Clark fan base, I want to say, is newer to the scene, right? Because Caitlin Clark is extremely young. She just got done her rookie season. She's been around for us in the limelight for only 5 years, basically. So when we talk about this passion, they're newer to the scene, but they're extremely passionate, extremely different. They treat Caitlin Clark like a generational icon already. And she's accomplished a lot, but she has so much to accomplish. But the potential is there for her to be seen as that general icon. For us Caitlin Clark fans, they treat her like that already now because of the potential, because of the play style, because of the game. And what I can appreciate about Caitlin Clark and her fan base is that most of the fan base are really into basketball. Like, they're not really into all that other stuff. They want to see good basketball. They want to see an exciting play. They have high expectations for their team. It's a very unique and different fan base in comparison to other fan bases within the WNBA that care about everything outside of basketball. I will say that Caitlin Clark fan base is a lot of these people that love Caitlin Clark, the true Caitlin Clark fans, are really diehard basketball fans that want to talk about the actual on-court product in the actual game and not all the narratives and the agendas outside of the hardwood floors. That's why when the people are saying that some of the Caitlin Clark fans are switching up on her because they were upset that Caitlin Clark endorsed Kamala Harris in a social media post and liked the social media post with Taylor Swift. Those weren't never real Caitlin Clark fans or supporters. The true fans and supporters care about the on-court production, the game of basketball, and as you're going to see, trust the arenas will still be packed. The real fans are still going to be a part of the attendance. The real fans are still going to talk about her game, and the real fans are going to travel no matter where she goes. So this new fan base for us, the Caitlin Clark fan base, is newer. They're passionate. They're here to stay. They care about the game of basketball, and they go hard against any criticism, especially regarding like WNBA physicality, when it comes to narratives, when it comes to people try to put Caitlin Clark in a bad light, and her fans are deeply engaged in social media debates. And that's important and that's extremely important because for us, like a fan base, social media is the way people can express themselves, opinions, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And oftentimes when it comes to Caitlin Clark, if they perceive something that's a slight against her, they're going to speak out against it. And a lot of times they're going to speak out with facts that's going to be provided and not necessarily agendas or narratives that other people try to cast on Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark's fan base is extremely new once again, and they have a strong mix of college basketball fans and WNBA fans, which I think is very important. I think it's very unique as well. And once again, I think it's also very unique that most of the Caitlin Clark fans actually care about basketball. And that's kind of been an issue when we talk about the WNBA. A lot of people care about everything other than the game itself of basketball. So that's Caitlin Clark's fan base. Then you got Stephen Curry's fan base. Devoted, relentless, love to talk about how Stephen Curry has changed the game. That's their biggest thing when we hear about Stephen Curry. He's the greatest athlete to ever change the game of basketball. For us, the way the game is played in 3 points, where I will always say not necessarily individually, but more so team-oriented and structured. That's how Stephen Curry has changed the game. The teams want to play like the Golden State Warriors and a vast amount of 3-point shooting and layups and things of that nature. That's how I feel like Stephen Curry has changed the game, not more so individual based, but the team oriented style of structure. That's how I feel. But they're known for debating all time rankings and attacking anybody that disrespects Stephen Curry. They love a good underdog narrative or story, even though Stephen Curry has 4 championships. So most of these most of Stephen Curry's fan base came in the 2015 season. That's also is kind of part of the modern NBA as well, when Stephen Curry really kind of blew up, even though real basketball heads and Stephen Curry heads and stands or whatever you want to call them was around prior to that, them Davidson years. And this goes back when I'm talking about Caitlin Clark and also Stephen Curry, which they have a unique similarity to, because I feel like Stephen Curry's fans, the true diehard core fans, started at Davidson and went from Davidson into the NBA, similar to Iowa, started at Iowa and went from Iowa into the Indiana Fever. Those are the true niche fans that I believe that Caitlin Clark and Stephen Curry have going in their favor. And then you got the Bean, the Mama Army, Mama mentality. Kobe Bryant, one of the most legendary players who ever played this game. His fan base is not tolerating disrespect, the ultimate ride or die supporters. They'll argue Kobe Bryant, top 3 greatest basketball player of all time. And they're not fixated on stats. They're fixated on actual things that actually happened in his era that people try to pretend that didn't happen. They'll go war to war, toe to toe with Michael Jordan fans, LeBron James fans. It was always be a constant debate. The thing that they love and they talk about Kobe Bryant so much is the respect of his craft and the work ethic and his mentality more than anything, and how Kobe wasn't as – he was still physically gifted. He was still a supreme athlete, but he didn't have the same type of DNA or makeup for us athletically as some of those other players like LeBron and like Michael Jordan. And he really maxed out all of his attributes and all of his potential. And yeah, a lot of Kobe Bryant fans, I also would say, they still hold a little grudges with the LeBron and the Kobe, and how kind of LeBron came into the league with Kobe when Kobe was at his reign and stuff like that, and kind of closed the gap. So there's a lot of grudges and tensions when it comes to those things. And also it feels like a lot of times people misplace Kobe or forget or try to pretend like Kobe wasn't the best player in this league for not just 1 or 2 years. And if you ask basketball players and NBA players how they feel, how they talk about Kobe, it's extremely different in comparison to media members and the analytic crowds and the stat nerds and things of that nature. And it's a kind of imbalance. So, and that's why Kobe Bryant fans go so hard. And even after his passing, the loyalty even grew even more stronger. And his legacy is scarce. He has one of the greatest legacies, basketball legacies of all time, a true basketball savant. And his fan base will never let Kobe's legacy die, because his legacy will forever live on, because he's one of the greatest basketball players to ever play this game. If you don't feel like he's top 3 like I do personally, but anything below top 5, that's when we start having issues. And then we go to LeBron James. LeBron James has the most unique fan base because his fan base also includes a lot of haters. He has a lot of supporters and a lot of haters who secretly love him at the same time, because love and hate, jealousy is just love and hate at the same time. And that's what like LeBron James has for his fan base, and arguably the most vocal and battle-tested fan base, because they got to go against – they're going against Stephen Curry. They're going against Michael Jordan. They're going against Kobe Bryant. They're going against a lot of different people. And a lot of people have spent 20 plus years of fighting off haters, even from the media standpoint, when you think of the constant Jordan comparisons and the constant of like media pressure that LeBron James had coming in and having a media vocal figure, one of the greatest journalists of all time, be his biggest hater and have to constantly hear that for 20 plus years. And then LeBron James not only is still playing at a high and unique level, supreme, gifted, 40 years old, still dominated, still top 10 basketball player in the world. He's outlast a lot of his contemporaries, not just in the sport, game-wise, so some people want to say that's better than him, but also in the media. Skip Bayless is not Skip Bayless is not on a national covered show anymore, and LeBron James is still thriving. So they go to war for LeBron James in any social media platform, his GOAT status, and they would bring up stats. They would talk about longevity. They would do anything for LeBron James. It's like a cult-like devotion when we talk about LeBron James and defending LeBron James. And LeBron James right now is 40 years old, and when he retires, it's going to be a very, very sad day for basketball because he's been the face of the league for a very, very long time. And we can't leave out the original like godfather, and that's Michael Jordan. Like, the gatekeepers of basketball greatness, 6-0, the old heads that would come out and say, no matter the context, Michael Jordan was 6-0 in the NBA Finals. They would dismantle any modern day player that they would say that they're not tough enough, they're not skilled enough. They would do anything to make sure that that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James, that's better than Kobe Bryant. They would use that, well, Kobe Bryant was basically stole all Michael Jordan's moves, and he never was better than Michael Jordan. Even though I will always say that I think that Kobe was more skilled than Michael Jordan. But yeah, they would do anything to dismantle anybody that's debating against Michael Jordan. They refuse to acknowledge a lot of times LeBron's greatness. The LeBron fans and Michael fans constantly go at it on a constant basis. They don't really acknowledge any of the modern era or any of the 2000s era, because that would make them feel like when they talk about the whole era that Michael Jordan played in, the toughest era ever, which really wasn't. When we talk about the toughest era defensively, it was literally LeBron James era, the league that he entered in 2003. The 2000s era was really the toughest era of basketball, and the most challenging. So when we talk about these crazy stands, so that's what I said. We got Caitlin Clark, we got Stephen Curry, we got Kobe Bryant, we got LeBron James, we got Michael Jordan. Who is the craziest? I want y'all to rank them in the chat. Like, who do you think is the craziest? But I would say, to be honest, it's Michael Jordan and LeBron James, because the GOAT war is never ending. It's both sides are very militant about their guy being number one. And a lot of times you're not going to change either side's position, even if you're giving out context to reasons why. So I think that's probably the most craziest fan base of all time. For social media wildness, though, I think Stephen Curry and Caitlin Clark fans go the hardest in this modern era of basketball, especially Clark fans. Clark fans will argue anything about her impact. So for it's like the social media era, Curry fans and Clark fans, I think, definitely go the hardest. For its pure loyalty, emotion, Kobe fans definitely take it, I feel like. But at the end of the day, these fans have these fan bases, and these legends all have unique fan bases. They all have their own brand. And whether you're for any of them or you're not for any of them, you have to appreciate everything that these players have done and are going to continue to do if they're still around, and also appreciate the level of support that their fan bases will show for their players. They're truly ride or die players. Truman Tucker. I don't think a lot of people outside the aisle fully realize how much Hawkeyes mean to us. We have no pro teams. We're born in generations of family who love the Hawkeyes. Players feel like family. And Truman Tucker, you're absolutely right. And that's when we talk about Caitlin Clark. That's what made like her stand in her hometown so special. I can relate to that a little bit. even not on your level, because I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised, and we had the St. Louis Rams, we had the St. Louis Cardinals as well. No basketball team. That's why when people ask me about basketball, I can consider myself a truth teller, an NBA analyst that analyzes a game that really has no really loyalty to anybody, to be honest. My favorite player growing up was Dwayne Wade. So if I had to pick a team who's my favorite team of all time, it would be the Miami Heat, solely because of my favorite player being Dwayne Wade. But I don't really have any of the same type of loyalty or ties to the Miami Heat. And I can see things fully for the game of basketball due to the fact that I didn't grow up with a basketball team. So Truman is saying, like, Iowa, the Hawkeyes, generation of fans, his dad, himself, his mother, all these people gravitate towards Iowa because in Iowa, they don't really have anything but the Hawkeyes. So when you see Caitlin Clark and being this generational player, this generational talent, and she's from that area and she stays in her hometown and dominates and took a mid-major to the Final Four in 2 consecutive years and became arguably the greatest college basketball across men's and women's basketball, it means a little bit more. And that's why I say, like, for Caitlin Clark's fan base, the uniqueness about Caitlin Clark's fan base is they're coming from college into the WNBA as well. And that's very important because it bridges the gap, and also a lot of fans are still going to support the college game as well as the WNBA game as well. A lot of times we don't see that transitioning from the NBA side. Stephen Curry, we've seen it from Davidson to the NBA, but we really don't see it on the women's side. So I think that's why when other people talk shit about Kayla or any other IR player, we take it personal, and that's respect, because it's deeper, especially when I talked about it earlier in the stream about being from the Midwest and also like understanding. I'm so happy Caitlin Clark went to a Midwest region and got drafted to a Midwest team because we're part of a small market. The Midwest is very forgettable for it's like how people view the world. A lot of people, you ask them a geographical map about the United States of America, only thing they're going to talk about in the Midwest is the city of Chicago. They'll talk about Chicago. That's it. They'll talk about New York. They'll talk about Atlanta, Miami. They'll talk about Texas. They'll talk about California. That middle region gets lost in the sauce so much. And when you're from the Midwest state, Midwest city, like myself or other people in Iowa who support Caitlin Clark, it means a little different when you see somebody that's from that area, from that territory, go out and dominate, and you take things personal. Like, I can talk about, I'm sure Tucker would say that he can talk about Iowa, but he don't want nobody else talking about Iowa. I'm sure I'll say that I can talk about St. Louis to the cows and come home all about some of the things that I face as a challenge that I face as growing up in the hood, things of that nature, the difficulties of making it out and trying to become successful. But I don't want nobody else outside of St. Louis talking about my city. So I can understand why people feel like that's from Iowa, why they take things so personal, because it is a small city. It is a Midwest state, and they take things personal. When you have a figure like Caitlin Clark that's coming out, that's potentially going to be, arguably, she's a baby GOAT right now. And the baby GOAT means because she has potential to be the all-time GOAT. But when you see a player like Caitlin Clark come out and dominate, and you see her reach a certain level and a certain status, and now you're seeing all eyes gravitate towards her, and all these crazy things are happening, and narratives and agendas, all because of the game that she plays on the basketball court and how cold she is. And that's where all that's stemming from. And you have real Caitlin Clark fans want to keep about the product on the basketball court because she's that girl. She's her. But so many people don't want to do that. So I really appreciate y'all once again locking in on the stream. This is your boy, Ma K. Smith, also known as AKS, also known as the coolest guy in sports. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We made 1,000 subs, man. Let's get to 10,000 together, man. Appreciate y'all hopping in the chat. Follow me on all social media devices at AKS NBA. Always talking to NBA. always talking to WNBA. Always leave y'all with this. Faith without works is dead. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not into your own understanding, and always acknowledge him, and he will direct y'all path. Jesus is king. I'm gone, man. Peace.